Good morning, folks. My name is Jared Smith, and welcome to the spectacular BLEVCAST, short for Blevins Podcast. Today, we're going to be interviewing the many faces of Washington Irving, an alias for many characters of Joseph Heller's Catch-22, who were abundantly sick of bureaucracy. Our opening guest today is the first person to take on the role, introducing Yosarian.
Why, thank you, Jared Smith. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to have you. Now, let's get straight to the facts. Why did you adopt the name of Washington Irving in the first place? Was it to piss off those snobby military bureaucrats?
Actually, yes, it was, but it wasn't just for that. I started using an alias during my time in the hospital when the military put me in charge of censoring letters. I was disappointed to learn that the lives of enlisted men were only slightly more interesting than that of officers. So one day, I decided, hey, death to all modifiers. And that's when my lovely affair with letter destruction began. Obscuring letters in the craziest ways possible allowed me to reach a higher plane of creativity. And I signed every letter off with the name Washington Irving just to mess with them.
So, you did it all just because you were bored?
No, not just because I was bored. Rather, modifying letters was a way to express myself. It gave me control over something through expression and creativity. I feel like that is a rare thing when all the bureaucrats around you control you. So, yes, I did use Washington Irving to rebel against the military through literary expression, which is pretty ironic considering I was censoring letters. Now that I think about it, the irony is kind of like Catch-22 itself. Man, I really hate that catch.
Man, are you really crazy? No offense. But why the name Washington Irving?
Oh my good man, like everything else in this goddamn novel, I chose Washington Irving because of symbolism. Many historians regard the actual author of Washington Irving as the father of American short stories. For me, I became the father of rebellion against the military's corrupt bureaucracy using literature. I produced a ripple of anxiety on the ethereal military echelon by signing letters down under his name. And eventually, they floated a CID man back into the ward as a patient, to crack down on the cage. At first, I didn't know I would start the movement, but as it turned out, Washington Irving really did mess with them higher-ups.
Fascinating. I'm surprised it went on as long as it did. Those idiots in power really didn't know what to do about it.
You got that right, Smith. I find it telling that they didn't really know who the real Washington Irving is, and assumed it was a real soldier. Bureaucracy can be so laughably blind.
You got that right. And Yo-Yo.
Don't call me that, Joey!
Oh, sorry, Yosarian. I was going to ask, did you know that someone else adopted the infamous alias to also defy the military? And did you know that this person was a major?
A major? Must have been Danby, huh?
Wrong. Danby disappeared after they discovered he lent you money for your escape trip. Anyways, introducing Major.
Do I really have to be in the BLEVCAST, Smith?
Why, yes, Major, you do. You signed a contract, remember? I mean the IB English HL2 syllabus, not the military contract.
Ugh, fine.
I love your complacency. Now then, Major, how did you come upon the name Washington Irving, and why did you decide to become him? Isn't being a major a pretty big thing to risk for you?
No, not really. I actually despised my title at first. After I got it, the other soldiers I was once friends with did not want me to be one of them at all. They elbowed, tripped, and mauled me. Being a major made me feel excluded, so it was easy for me to become Washington Irving in that sense.
How awful. So you became Irving to spite the bureaucrats that put you in that lonely position?
Well, yes, Dad, but another reason is I was simply bored out of my mind as a major. There was so much paperwork. I hated watching simple communications swell ridiculously into huge manuscripts. That, inevitably, came back for another signature every time I signed one. It was pure torture. So, like Yosarian, I decided to spice up the job by signing documents under the alias Washington Irving. I knew it was an act of frivolity and rebellion for which I would be punished severely. But honestly, I didn't really care. Being Washington Irving liberated me from the shackles of bruancy. In fact, none of the documents to which I had signed Washington's Irving name ever came back. It was a miracle.
Ah, I see. Like Yosarian, you use Washington Irving's name to rebel against bureaucracy through expression.
Precisely. That's the power of literature, especially during wartime when our military censors and suppresses our voices.
That's why they sent the CID man, right?
Yes, they sent two of them after me, but those idiots started chasing each other. Bruancy, am I right? Anyways, I don't even know what happened to them, but they certainly did not catch me.
Welp, they did catch someone. Thank you, Major, for that interview. And can we all give a warm welcome to our favorite God-fearing man, the chaplain.
Thank you, sir. I feel like this interview has happened before, like it's some sort of deja vu.
You must be referencing Colonel Cathcart and Corn's interrogation of you. One of the charges they accused you of was being the elusive Washington Irving, right?
Why, yes, that was one of those charges. Those no good punks. They sent the CID men after me and dragged me into that horrid room to accuse me of a serious crime I committed. When I asked them what the crime was, they said that they didn't know yet, but that they're going to find out. Isn't that ridiculous?
It's very catch-22 in nature. Didn't they ask to see your handwriting too, to confirm if you're Washington Irving or not?
Yes, when I gave them back the piece of paper with my handwriting on it, they had the audacity to say that what I just wrote in front of their eyes was not my handwriting. I remember the terrifyingly stupid phrase the colonel in the back had said. We had asked you to write your name in your own handwriting, and you didn't do it. I practically melted.
That's awful. And you defended Yossarian by hiding the fact that he was the soldier who created Washington Irving, yes?
Right again. I couldn't bear to see my good pal Yo-Yo get into any official trouble. His fiery spirit seemed to be the only thing sensible about that war, and I wouldn't let those oppressive bureaucratic military overlords extinguish it.
That was a noble thing of you to do, Chaplain. Were you mad at Yossarian?
No, I wasn't. Knowing that man's brilliant mind, I knew Washington Irving was important to keep alive. Hell, I started feeling more like Washington Irving the moment I stepped out of that damn interrogation dungeon. I was more furious at the atrocities of the day when Nately and Dobbs were killed than I had ever felt before in my entire life. I felt rebellious, so I stormed up to Colonel Corn and declared that I wasn't going to stand up for it anymore.
God would be so proud of you, Chaplain. I find it ironic that those bureaucrats made you buy into the Washington Irving movement by wrongly accusing you of being Washington Irving in the first place.
Yes, it is ironic, but thankfully, Washington Irving taught me not to be complacent to those idiots in power, unless I wanted to be tortured again. In fact, after the interrogation incident and Yossarian's departure, I vowed to myself that I would persevere, that I'd nag and badger Colonel Cathcart and Colonel Corn every time I saw them. I was no longer afraid of those bullies, and I have Washington Irving to thank for that.
Now that is beautiful. Thank you, Chaplain, for being here today. Well, folks, there you have it. Washington Irving was rebellion, and rebellion was through expression, just like what Joseph Heller intended Catch-22 to be. What a beautiful way to conclude today's segment of the BLEVCAST. Tune in next time as we address the moral implications of assigning an 11-page syllabus to your students.